How's it going, everybody? It's poppin' here. It's been a while. I finally have time to record my Season 7 review for VBL-S, the Baby Conference. Me and Tay still have to do the exhibition match between Baby and Daddy for the Grandpa Finals, but in the meantime, we're going to go over my season, how it went, what I learned, what I tried, what worked, what didn't work, and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So we're powered tonight by a little cocktail of an espresso shot with a shot of Gentleman Jack. It's actually pretty good. My two vices combined. So, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about a championship season, undefeated, partly good play, mostly good luck. Either way, I'm happy about it. So, let's get into it. I'm going to have to probably go away from most of the video because there's charts and graphs, because I like my data, and I like to say things that are backed with numbers and statistics, all sorts of fun stuff. So, you can see here my final team was the same team that I started with. I really liked the team that I drafted. There were certain parts of it that I thought I was going to change. I think around the beginning I was thinking of dropping Doug Trio. Ultimately, that didn't happen. So, the things that I liked about this team were twofold, really. It was a very bimodal team, and when I say that, I mean, there was kind of two distinct functions that this team could do, right? I had extreme offense, that being Sableye, Blacephalon, Hydreigon, and what else here? Noivern even, and Venusaur. But then I also had that paired with incredibly hard-to-break defenses, and that was particularly Spritzee, Quagsire, with honorable mentions to Appleton and Orbeetle, and even Venusaur sometimes. And the team was really supported by three crucial support pieces, being Sableye for just an all-around good stuff mon, Noivern for fast mode, and Spritzee for slow mode. And if there's any team in the league that had steals on value mons, I think it was my team. Spritzee for 2 points is bonkers. Quagsire for like 5, I think. Appleton for maybe 3 or 4. Simply unbelievable stuff. It was a crime with what I got away with. So that definitely helped me my points around on bigger, better mons, more so than some other teams did. Nothing on my team is bad. I don't think. And a lot of that is due to the fact that I spent my points, I'd say, pretty damn well. The only thing I would say on this team that was really lacking was my typing. I should have put a picture of it in here, but my type chart has just like a lot of red, like all over it. Maybe I do talk about that in a little bit. I think I talk about each of these three things a bit more coming up, so right off the bat, let's just look at one little quick overview of the things and how often I brought them. Noivern is number 1. I brought it all 10 weeks. It was just a key piece of my my fast mode, being the only thing on my team that got Tailwind, really the only thing on my team that had positive fast speed control. I brought Scarf Walrein one week, but it never showed up. So Noivern was there every single week to kind of facilitate the fast stuff. Sableye was there every week except for the first time I played Steve, because I was really scared of neutralizing gas and all his 3 fairies. But other than that, it showed up every single week, and it put in tons and tons of work. Honestly, I could have even brought it that week against Steve, and it probably would have put in work there. Number 8 is Blacephalon, which makes sense. This was the mon that I had kind of planned this whole draft around, even though I didn't pick it first. I thought Sableye was more important. But Blacephalon came quite frequently as well, just a huge dumb breaker. Exploded, dealt a lot of damage, threw a lot of shadow balls around. It was a good time. Hydreigon last, he was 7, another big breaker, but having a quad weakness to fairy. Even though there weren't very many fairy types, it still kind of hurt. And everything else was just 5 or below. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about all these mons. We'll give them their own time to shine. So the first thing I want to talk about is my offensive pieces. And I generally classify this as Blacephalon, Hydreigon, Noivern, and Venusaur. And these mons have big numbers, and with big numbers, you deal lots of damage. So if you look at them, I have the win percentages over here. They are typically on the back half of the team, but obviously the stuff higher up, a lot of it came to less games, so obviously it is weighted down a bit. But one thing that I really did learn from this is that not only do you have to have good base stats, you also have to have high base power. All 4 of these mons have decent base stats, well, at least above average for the format, right? Noivern, in a typical format, you wouldn't say it's anything special for its special attack stat, but the special attack stat on average was like 70-something, I think, maybe like 75, 80 for this format. So 97 is pretty sweet when you compare it to that. But the more important thing was these mons all had big, dumb moves to click. Hydreigon, Draco Meteor. Noivern, Draco Meteor and Hurricane. Blacephalon, Mind Blown, Venusaur, Weather Ball, and Leaf Storm. These mons don't do nearly as much damage with their moves that are more reliable, right? Like as we go through each of these mons, we'll see that I picked moves with big downsides a lot, because with this team, I needed to take kills as quickly as possible, and I can't afford a 30% roll on Energy Ball. I'll gladly take the Oko with Leaf Storm any day and deal with a special attack drop later. And for these big offensive pieces, like I said, they're all special, but that kind of worked out in a season where everything was kind of physically biased. Most teams that I played had significantly higher physical attack and physical defense than the special variants of it, and that definitely ended up coming into play. I kind of stole all the good special attackers, or at least a lot of them, so it helped. It obviously helped my opponents prep, but it also helped me hit teams on their weaker side on average, so helped me get extra percentages where I may not have gotten them if I had picked like physical attacking versions of all these mons. But the thing is, I did try to pick a physical attacker for offense, but it's not listed here. It's not one of these big four. The 4 out of the 5 mons that I picked for offense, they all pulled their weight, but we'll talk about that one later. So the second part of the strategy that I liked about my team was that it has the big, dumb defensive pieces that just never die. Spritzee, Quagsire, Appleton, and Orbeetle are all just absolute pains to deal with. They all have different defensive profiles. You bring something for one and it doesn't hit any of the others. And they all have great typings in their own way. Obviously, Spritzee and Quagsire have the best, but in certain matchups, Appleton and Orbeetle's types can pull their own weight. Appleton's lucky to have a nice ability in Thick Fat. Orbeetle's good because it has the ground resistances that a lot of Pokemon are kind of dying for, and that huge quad fighting resistance is also amazing. These 4 mons kind of acted as ways to stall out the rest of the game after my big mons have punch holes in the team. If my Hydreigon, my Blacephalon can knock out your 2 mons that can play the long game, then my guys that can play the long game come in after, and they just stick around forever. They never die. They kind of act as the cleanup crew. I had a lot of games this season where I had my big flashy mons die in the first 5 turns, and then something slow and stupid ended up winning the game, like Appleton, Quagsire, Spritzee, and Orbeetle. All 4 of those mons won a game pretty much alone at one point or another. Like, there's one game where Orbeetle took 3 kills. I'm sure there was a game, I think, where Quagsire got all 4. It's just kind of crazy stuff like that. It's kind of crazy. This format had a lot of big bulky stuff. In the first part of the Daddy Plan, all the flashy stuff went, right? Kartana, gone. Like, what else am I thinking of? You know, lots of other big dumb special attackers, like Chandelure, gone. All sorts of stuff like that were just picked because they're good. People want to win. So that left a lot of things that were bulkier and lower tiered. Those all got left behind, and I snatched up a whole lot of them. And they all kind of follow, well, besides Spritzee, they all kind of follow the same routine of boost plus recovery, and you'll eventually get there. When mons aren't as powerful, any kind of defensive piece ends up surviving a hell of a lot longer than it would in a normal format. But my fast mode and my slow mode could only be enabled by my support pieces, which I broadly categorize as Sableye, Noivern, and Spritzee. All 3 of them, like I said before, were super important to the overall functionality of the team. Noivern is the fast mode, it has the Tailwind, it has the Frisk, it can reliably run Choice Scarf. And those 3 pieces alone were just enough to pretty much guarantee a lead in like probably around 40% or more of my matches that Noivern showed up to. Spritzee enabled the slow mode. It was the only mon on my team that ever ran Trick Room. Orbeetle could, but Orbeetle's at a really weird speed tier where it's fast and doesn't really want to be in Trick Room, but it can set it pretty well. Spritzee does both. Spritzee sets Trick Room and it loves to be in it. And Sableye's just here as the absolute fucking GOAT. This thing did everything. It was the best mon on my team by far, and one of the best performing mons in the entire format. Obviously, you have to exclude everything from Tay's team, because he didn't fucking drop a single game, which is just bananas, but we'll talk about Tay later. We'll face Tay later. I have to play him in a couple days. But those big 3 really helped tie the team together and helped me pivot from my fast mode at the start of most games into the kind of slower mode that I usually was going to clean games out and clean them up with. Sorry, I'm dual fisting drinks. I got my cocktail and my water here. So, value picks. I spent 11 points on mons that came 20 times. I believe that is Appleton, Quagsire, and Spritzee. So that would be 5, 4, and 2. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That adds up. So I spent 11 points on these three. They showed up to 20 games. Sableye cost 2 points more and came only one more time. The math is simple. I got such good value for those points. Spritzy, like I said before, was one of my key support pieces in transitioning into the slow endgame kind of scenarios, because it just never dies. It's so bulky. And then Appleton and Quagsire more so than Appleton, were definitely some of my endgame threats, because it's really hard to hit Quagsire super effectively, and if you can't, it can just boost up to the point where neutral hits aren't going to cut it. And Appleton, it played in 2 games. It was really just a body press bot, but that gets the job done. But I'm sure when I ran this analysis, I was just stunned that these 11 points were essentially the same as these points, whereas a lot of the time you'll spend a lot of points on shit mons that never show up. Like last season, I only brought 7 mons to the field ever, so I could have just spent all my points on good stuff that was even better than the 7 I picked, but you know, you live and you learn. So this is my type chart. This is one of the things that I learned a lot about in my experience over draft, what matters on a type chart and what doesn't. If you look at my type chart, there's a whole lot of red down there. That's pretty fucking embarrassing. I have an ice weakness, a flying weakness, a rock weakness, a ghost weakness, a dragon weakness, and a fairy weakness. Holy shit, that's a lot of types. Especially to some really common ones. Ice, flying, and rock. Tons of Monlutons learn those attacks. But those are pretty common types to end up with a net weakness to, so that's not the end of the world. But leaving Ghost, Dragon, and Fairy weaknesses, those were tactical decisions. I planned those because I wanted to go all in on Dragon types, so obviously I'm going to end up with the 2 types the Dragon's weak to. But, oh, and the 3rd type the Dragon's weak to, there you go. But thankfully, if you have a team that just kills them first, these weaknesses matter a lot less. So one thing that I wanted to look at was comparing my type chart from this season up top to my type chart from Season 3 down here. They both have a lot of red. This one actually has more red than the one below. But Season 3 I did horrible. It was my worst showing ever. And there's definitely a lot more than just a type chart to that, but I thought this was kind of emblematic of it, and something that I remembered facing in Season 3 was just my stuff was just dying. I couldn't live any hits. And something that I think I learned was that even though I have a lot more net weaknesses up top, I have a lot more resistances and weaknesses. I would rather have a net weakness with mons that resist it more than no net weaknesses, but also no neutralities and no resistances, right? So like you see here on this one, what do I have here? Yeah, so Season 7, I'm very weak, but I have 3 mons that can viably switch into resist fairy types. But here in Season 3, I had a, quote, electric resistance, but I remember one week I played Braff and he just absolutely steamrolled me with electric types because nothing on my team interacted with it besides Circuitry. Okay, I'm not even sure if Circuitry was on the team by that point. Charge-a-Bug, which is Charge-a-Bug, and Marowak, which, if you don't bring Marowak, nothing else is going to take these electric hits well. I would rather have 3 things weak to Fairy and 1 that resist it than nothing interact with the type at all, and then just take full damage and things add up really quickly there. Being able to play smart around your weaknesses lets you kind of skirt the line and just barely live some hits while still being able to get off your hits with your big offensive cannons. And being able to have a presence there forces them to commit to the big moves, right? So, if they think, well, for example, in Season 3, if they're going to throw out a big stupid electric attack, they can do it. It'll be pretty well odds that it's going to not hit anything, like, pathetically. That was a really awful sentence, man. I'm sorry about that. The string's going to my head. In Season 3, if you were to throw an electric type attack at my team, odds are it'd do a lot of damage. Season 7, same thing with a fairy type attack. Throw it out. There's a decent chance that it'll do some damage, or Venusaur can switch in and just absolutely soak it all up. So, having red down there doesn't matter as much as having green in that column to help you reliably switch into it. Same kind of story here with ice, right? I have Lysephalon and Walrein to resist it. I can bring either of those in a week. I very commonly brought them for the sole purpose of switching into ice moves. And I think in the finals match, Walrein switched into an ice beam and took literally 2%. It was crazy. So, let's talk about the individual mons of my team. Sableye. I brought this thing to 22 out of the 25 games I played this season, and it played in 21 of those games, which is kind of crazy. That's nearly 100%. Sableye ended up with 16 kills and 14 deaths, 17 wins and 4 losses, which again, pretty great numbers. If you look at There's these little boxes over here. These are the stuff I ran. I usually ran Quash on Sableye. Prankster Quash is just so ridiculously overpowered. I typically ran it with some kind of longevity item, be it a Rosalie Berry or a Focus Sash. Mental Herb and Eject Button were kind of niche flexes. I brought Mental Herb for the time I played Alolan Persian because I couldn't reliably taunt it to stop it from doing things to me. So if it taunts me, I'll be able to do something else next turn and it'll have to taunt me again. And the Eject Button was when I played Kangaskhan again with, Canner's Kangaskhan, because having a scrappy Fake Out is really not fun to play against. Sableye played the role of general support, but also I learned that this thing can do a lot of damage. Poltergeist is a super powerful move. Sableye has an okay attack stat. It's a little below average, but still, it's almost average. So, just being able to dump a lot of EVs into attack with just bulking up Sableye and HP, it lets it live a good amount of hits and deal a good amount of damage. I was really quite often getting 2-hit KOs on this thing. And one thing that I thought was kind of funny is that despite how bad Sableye stats are, it's like 50 HP, 75 defense, and 65 SpDef, I think, or maybe 55 SpDef. It still just wasn't going down. And the reason for that is, again, back to typing. Nothing hits Sableye that hard. Nothing hits Sableye that hard. Obviously, we know that. Its only weakness is Fairy. But at the beginning of the season, when I ran my little bulk calculator thing, I added kind of a fudge factor in there to account for type, and maybe it did its job pretty well. I mean, Sableye lived a lot more hits than it was supposed to be living. So, definitely going to keep that in mind when I analyze mods for the next season to draft. We have Blacephalon up next. Brought to 19 out of 25 games, played in 16 of those games. 16 kills, 11 deaths, 12 wins, 4 losses. And I honestly think this is the most threatening mon of the format. If you run the numbers, its Overheat does more damage than a Circuitry Thunder. I'm pretty sure. That doesn't sound right, but I put it in here, so it has to be right? Unless I fucked up something on the damage calc. Those 20 extra base points are more important than the 20 extra special attack points, because special attack has a lot more of diminishing returns than base power does. So overall, Overheat's a little bit more powerful than Thunder. And no type just inherently is immune to fire, whereas Thunder can be stumped by any ground type. Fire's a great type. You add Ghost to it, it's even harder to resist. There was 5 mons in this format that could resist it, and I don't even know if I played any of them. So if you look at the stuff that I brought on Blacephalon, Shadow Ball almost every single time because you need a Ghost move. And a lot of it was kind of split between just fire moves, Mind Blown being a personal favorite of mine, Fire Blast for a lot of the times, but then I started switching to Overheat, and I liked that better. Overheat was hitting numbers that Fire Blast just barely couldn't. Overheat was like picking up KOs where Fire Blast wasn't. So I realized, hey, if I'm using Draco Meteor and Leaf Storm and all these other mons, why aren't I just running Overheat on Blacephalon? Blacephalon even gets a little bit of help because it gets the nice Beast boost, so it's like only a -1. It's like what the hell's it called? Golden Goes Attack Make It Rain, so think about that. Items on Blacephalon, typically stuff to make it live sometimes, or stuff to make it powerful. Kind of 50-50, really hard to tell. Don't look at this Rocky helmet, let's not talk about that. But I had to give a little shout out right here, Blacephalon. Its most crowning achievement was in my first game against Heaven. I used Mind Blown on turn 1, and if there weren't Focus Sashes, I would have killed 3 mons, which was, oh, that was so fun. I loved clicking that and just seeing Focus Sash, everything just disappear. Noivern is up next. I brought it to all 25 of my matches. Woohoo! It only played in 15 of them. Noivern was definitely a more matchup dependent mon. It had 10 kills, 15 deaths, with 11 wins and 4 losses. This is the first mon where I actually started bringing different abilities on. Telepathy, Infiltrator, and Frisk all got used, which is nice. Obviously, Telepathy and Frisk are pretty good. Infiltrator is a lot more niche. I think I had that. Oh, I don't remember what week I had that. I'm sure if I went back, I could find it pretty quick. In terms of items, damage boosting is pretty important for Noivern. It doesn't quite hit the same numbers that the rest of my team does. And in terms of moves, Tailwind and Draco, easy peasy, slap it on. Just a general good stuff. The rest is spread up between general support moves and more other damage effects. I'm going to be honest, I'm so glad I didn't get to pick Dragonite. On my original draft plan, Noivern was not even in the picture. It was going to be Sableye, Blacephalon, Dragonite. But I think Mono picked Dragonite, so I got Noivern instead. But I think Noivern's a hell of a lot better. It has so many possible support options, and Frisk is just such a good move. Like, I'd rather have a useless ability games 2 and 3 then not have the information you get by getting Frisk on in game 1, turn 1. That's just so important. But like I said, Noivern, pretty good mon, super duper fast. I actually didn't even really make much attention to that, but this is like the second or third fastest mon in the format. It was so easy to set up Tailwind, and it is just strong enough to get the job done. Like, for example, Draco Meteor with Specs kills this thing through a Habanberry. Oh, one sec. Alright, we're back. Moving on to Hydreigon. I brought this thing 18 out of 25 times. It played in 9 games, and typically I ran it with big items to do lots of damage. Or sometimes I brought it with survivability. Typically, your Draco Meteor was the most common move, followed by Dark Pulse, Fire Blast to protect. So it got 12 kills, 8 deaths, 7 wins, and 2 losses. I brought this thing a lot less than I thought I was gonna, honestly. Came to 18 and only played 9 of them, which is kind of a crazy ratio, but Hydreigon was so fun. Just came in, clicked big stupid buttons, did big stupid amounts of damage, you can see here. Kills Ninetales in 1 hit. Kills, what the fuck is that? Sigilif in 1 hit. Oh, so nice. Gotta love it. Having no good fairy types besides Spritzy and, what the fuck is that thing called? Ninetales and Sylveon, that's what I'm thinking of. Its life gets a whole lot easier. This thing is kind of similar to Bucephalon in a way where it has that crazy attack stat, big base power moves, but the upside of Hydreigon is it can actually take a hit. It's not absolutely crumpled to a common priority move that tons of Mon learn. If Sucker Punch didn't exist, Bucephalon would be such a better Pokemon. But it does, and that's one of the reasons why Hydreigon likes to have the bulk that it does. Hydreigon has an insane move pool as well. If you look at this, 75% of the moves, 3/4 of these all have a base power greater than 100, which is just kind of wacky. Moving on along here, we have Spritzy. Brought it 14 times, played 10 of those games. There's the sets right there. Oops, just kidding, those are Venusaur sets. What the fuck? Spritzy always ran a Violet. Duh. 6 kills, 6 deaths, 8 wins, 2 losses. And Spritzy is absolutely crazy bulky. Like, it really just kind of went, like, way farther than I ever thought it would. This thing never went down. It just totally tanked every single thing people threw at it. I think Spritzy was another good example of my little bulk calculator being able to factor in typing. I think that was another good example of that actually being somewhat accurate in terms of properly calculating a mon's bulk. When you did factor in typing, Spritzy was like a top 20 in terms of bulk. And in reality, Spritzy was one of the strongest mons in the format and hardest to take down. So, I don't know. Maybe that's just my bias. Maybe it's not. But I really think that Spritzy was such a great pick. I think it was a value pick of the draft. And honestly, it might even be a top 2 or top 1 fairy, specifically in the Daddy Plan Part 2. Venusaur is up next. Brought it to 13 out of 25 games and it played 10. Venusaur was definitely a matchup mon. There were lots of weeks where I didn't even think about bringing this thing, but other weeks where it came and just totally dominated. 8 kills, 8 deaths, 7 wins, 3 losses. And Venusaur is nice because it's super versatile. It has kind of that Gen 1 mon thing going on where it has like really just flat stats across the board, nothing too exciting. It's not min-maxed like Bucephalon is. It just has nice solid stats in pretty much every category. And that allows it to kind of be customizable, right? I can either be offensive with Chlorophyll and full-on Life Orb, Weather Ball, Leaf Storm kind of stuff, or I can be defensive with Leech Seed and Screens. And one of the things that really helps enable that both is Sleep. Sleep Powder is such a killer. It's an overpowered status for sure. And just getting free turns helps on offense, it helps on defense, obviously helps on offense a bit more, but it just really helps Venusaur get the job done in pretty much any situation, honestly. I also liked it. Obviously, this isn't really something you ever noticed, but I definitely felt like it was forcing people to prep for a possible Sun mode every single week. Did it make people think about that? Maybe. There were times where they definitely should have, and it steamrolled through the team. Quagsire's up next. I brought this to 12 games, played 5 of them. This is starting to get to some of the lower tier, less brought mons. 7 kills and 2 deaths, 4 wins, 1 loss. And Quagsire is such a goon. When you see it coming, it's going to set up. It's not going to die. I'm going to hope and pray that you don't have a grass type move with stab to hit me with. And if you don't, that's about it. This was a little clip from my first week where I played Sukaba. and Quagsire ended up endgaming in Game 1 and Game 2, and there was just nothing Sukaba could do about it. It just was able to boost up, use Recover, heal passively with the leftovers, and then that was it. The game was over from there. So Quagsire really functions on kind of its impeccable typing, and it's just good enough bulk to be able to survive a couple hits to start boosting, and then the rest of the moveset's everything you'd ever need. Recover, lots of moves to hit things neutrally, and just get the job done. Orbeetle's up next. I brought this to 9 out of 25 games, played 5, 7 kills, 2 deaths, 3 wins, 2 losses. Orbeetle has a pretty fucking bad typing. I was talking about it earlier, kind of talking good about it, but in reality, Ghost and Psychic is just not what you want to have. It has a lot of weaknesses to a lot of common stuff, but there were weeks where it totally paid off. One nice thing that it has over the other boosting mons on my team is its speed. Base 90 is significantly higher than any of the other 3. Like Quagsire was the fastest, and I think that's base 35 maybe base 30. So a huge jump there from 35 to 90. Lets Orbeetle kind of effectively be bulkier than them, even despite its worst typing, because if I can get the boost off before you hit me, look at that. It's like I was super bulky the whole time, mate. It's like I came into the game with a good type. But Orbeetle's good. Definitely glad I drafted it. It was something I had been looking at for a while, and I'm really glad that I finally got to pick it up and make good use of it. Appleton's up next. Starting to get to the really bottom of the barrel stuff. I brought the 6 games, played in 5 of them, got 5 kills, 1 deaths, 4 wins, 1 loss. I really just brought it for body press, iron defense stuff, and then with either Draco Meteor or Apple Acid, just depending on the matchup. Citrus Berry and Haban Berry, Thick Fat Ripen. It just makes it a good mon. Just a really good guy. You'd love to hang out with them, spend some time with him, dig into him. Just a good fella. Walreyn's up next. I brought this 7 times, but it only played once. It played in the very last game of the series, very last game of the season for me. It had 2 kills, never died, and it won that last game, crucially, because it's an 100% win rate mon. It has an infinite KD ratio. Let's go! Woo! Dugtrio is up next. Last but least, absolutely fucking dog shit. I hate this mon. I brought it 5 times, and it played twice. It had 1 kill and 2 deaths, 1 win, 1 loss. So, I pulled up my little type calculator, and would you know that Dugtrio, the Alolan form, is as bulky as Gossifleur? I didn't know what Gossifleur was. I had to look this up. It's the baby form of Eldegoss. Eldegoss isn't even good, so its baby form definitely isn't good. It's so fucking frail. I would rather have this thing on my team, honestly. I think it gets that nice ability that Eldegoss does where it sprays cotton everywhere and slows people down. Dugtrio has that same ability, but worse. So, I mean, Dugtrio better be doing some pretty big numbers, right, to make up for that? No, it doesn't. It has base 100 attack with moves that have low base power. High horsepower is the best bet. 99 or 95 power? Cool. 95 accuracy? What the fuck? Why? I didn't miss a high horsepower, but I also don't think I ever fucking used it. You have to go full on choice band to deal damage with this thing, but it's so frail. You want to run protect. You want to be able to position it, and its best stab, ground, has a type that's just completely immune to it, so you don't want to use choice band because then you could just be locked into a permanent like 100% lose scenario if they have a flying type as their last mon. But then if you want to run a life orb, you don't hit the damage thresholds you need, and then you die in response anyways. I remember in the very first season we had, I remember Tom, an OG to the league, he brought this thing in like the first round of playoffs. I remember it was named Jeff, and it totally just fucking smashed whoever his opponent was, and that was awesome. But Dugtrio is not all that in a non-Dynamax format. Having the one of the lowest bulks of all the fully evolved Pokemon is just, you hate to see it. So, now that we've talked about all my mons, let's talk about the awards going out this season and who stood out among the rest. Alrighty, starting off with the best duo, we have Sableye and Noivern. I might have mentioned it before, but Noivern is a great mon to lead with because it has Frisk and it has Tailwind. So, by leading Noivern with Frisk and Sableye, I can pretty much identify what I need to do turn 1 with almost like 100% certainty. I ended up leading these two 9 out of 25 of the games. This is my most common lead combo for good reason. It's able to get me off on a strong pace at the very start of the game, which is where that matters the most. And being able to see items from turn 1 and game 1 is so much better than having to kind of tiptoe around and find out through deduction. Oh, this must be Expert Belt. Oh, this is Life Orb actually. Oh, wait, no, this is AV. Obviously, that's doable, but it takes time, it takes brain power, and over a long, drawn-out game, there's only so much brain power you have to spare, right? So, having Frisk, having Quash, makes it easy mode. You love to see it. Best nickname, Bugbrain the Orbeetle. Most value, and most creative build, and the one-hit wonder. We're talking about Spritzy again. Best value, I already talked about this, I already gushed about this. Spritzy is absolutely fucking crazy. 2 points for a mon like this should never have happened. And then when we're talking about most creative build and the one-hit wonder, we're talking about the full-on offensive nuclear fireball Spritzy. Calm Mind, Flash Cannon, Moonblast, and Thunderbolt versus Steve in the semis. I was able to boost up to +6 and start taking out the rest of his team, and it was just not something that I'm sure anybody had ever prepped for. Best moment, check out Heaven's vid. I remember this. Hopefully you do too. And also subscribe to Heaven. Saddest moment was when I played Sly, and I shit-talked to Munchlax in the team builder, talking about how it's a bad mon and it will never show up. And then it showed up and hit 4 fucking fissures. Most disappointing mon, Ye Who Shall Not Be Named. Best match was both my games against Steve. Go check him out on his channel. Subscribe to Steve if you're not. And then we come to the best support mon and MVP of the league. Well, of my team, but I would say of the league, at least Baby Conference, is Sableye. This thing is a fucking king. Look how happy it is. Look how dapper it is. This little goblin makes everyone's life awful. And really the only good way to play around it is just to draft it yourself. So, with that, Season 7 is done. We are moving on to Scarlet and Violet, baby. Looking forward to start this draft, hopefully sooner rather than later. And we'll see you all in the next generation. I'm recording another video. Actually, as soon as I stop recording this one, I'm going to record it. But we're going to talk about some of the changes between Daddy playing Scarlet and Violet draft, and just talk about what's new in the format and what to look out for. So thank you very much for watching. I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.